Good afternoon, all, and welcome to the 780 CMR 10th edition Stretch Code webinar. Introduction today of our presenter is Vernon Woodworth, Fitzemeyer and Tocci's market leader for life safety and codes. I'm Cheryl Butler, the business development coordinator. A few comments before we start. All will be in listen-only mode. If you wish to ask a question, please type it in the side chat bar. Presentation will be about 15 to 20 minutes long with questions at the end. I will present the questions to Vernon. This also will be recorded and then forwarded to all the attendees. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Cheryl, and welcome everyone. So the Massachusetts Board of Building Regulations and Standards, or the BBRS, is the board responsible for enforcing and promulgating the Massachusetts State Building Code. They are expected to vote to adopt the 2021 versions of the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, the International Energy Conservation Code, the International Existing Building Code, and the International Mechanical Code as the basis for the next edition, the 10th edition of 780 CMR. That vote is likely to take place within the next 6 months, and the adoption will likely be concluded by approximately this time next year. In the process, our stretch code will also very likely be updated. This seminar will briefly discuss the major changes. What is happening is we're going from the 9th edition, which adopts the 2015 family of codes, to the 2021 and skipping over the 2018 with the possible exception of the Energy Conservation Code, which I'll get into shortly. But the most significant change in the 2021 IBC is the allowance of taller buildings constructed with combustible structural materials. So the previous type 4 construction, which is heavy timber, has been expanded and will include cross-laminated timber or lumber and any other form of composite wood material that meets the dimensional requirements of heavy timber. It's going to be called mass timber from here on in, and there will be a type 5A, a type 5B, and a type 5C with different requirements based on the structural materials and different limitations based on both height and area. That would be a separate seminar in and of itself, so I'm going to leave it at that and let you look forward to building big buildings with wood. Some of the other changes include fire resistance requirements for secondary or non-structural attachments to structural members. There's a requirement now that all Group R buildings must be 4 stories or less in height, measured from grade plane, and no more than 30 feet above or below the lowest point of fire department access. This is a change to the way height is measured for combustible construction in use group R. Previously, we were allowed, or currently I should say, we were allowed to measure from the top of a podium to the top of a group R building, and now we must go from grade plane, or the lowest point of fire department access. And then the final bullet on this page, a major change to open parking garages, which now will be required to be sprinkled if they exceed 12,000 square feet, which probably most open parking garages do. So this map gives you an overview of some of the codes adopted around the country, and we would likely be among the first to adopt the 2021 codes. You're probably familiar with the fact that the Green Communities Act requires that we adopt the latest model energy code within 12 months of its publication. Therefore, the board has already voted to adopt the 2018 IECC. the Energy Conservation Code, initially intending for that to go into full force and effect August 8th. The vote was taken around January, and the adoption date was, I believe, January or February 8th. No, January 8th. So 6-month period would put us to August, and that would have been the end of the 2015 IECC. However, at their last meeting, the BBRS entertained a motion to extend that concurrency period, possibly through the end of the year, and they agreed to take that up in their July meeting, which will take place on July 16th. July 14th. So if the end of the concurrency period is moved from August 8th to January 1st, the 2018 IECC would be in effect for a much shorter period of time than anticipated, likely less than a year, possibly only a matter of months. And under those circumstances, it's possible the BBRS may choose to move directly to the 2021 IECC from what we're currently using, the 2015, although you can use the 2018. That is legally in effect currently. And the motive for adopting more stringent stretch codes and energy codes, of course, has to do with the increasing awareness of the impacts of global warming, which we're familiar with. The International Panel on Climate Change, the scientists who monitor global warming and issue periodic reports, has established 1.5 degrees Celsius as a maximum heat increase for average global temperature before cascading negative effects occur that would result in emissions of additional greenhouse gases. And I'll just mention the melting of permafrost, which has made the news recently, as one example. There is carbon stored in the permafrost, which as it melts is released, adding to the climate change greenhouse effect. So we've had a public outcry and movement to address this issue, which may or may not be heard, but codes are clearly moving in the direction of greater energy conservation. So let's look first at what has happened, I should say, between the 2015 and the 2018 IECC. There's been no significant change in efficiency, only minor improvements, possibly 2 to 5% of our total energy consumption in terms of increased efficiency between the two codes. We are now subject to more detailed lighting control requirements and reduced lighting power density allowances. And the basis of design for 2018 lighting power density is 20% less in hospitals, and we have added additional option packages for increased envelope efficiency and reduced air leakage. Those are in the base energy code. Also, window maximum U factors have been reduced somewhat, and there are increased requirements for high efficacy lamps, and minimum fan efficiency has been established at a lower rate. The 2009 IECC backstop remains in effect for buildings without on-site energy generation, and shower head flow rates have been reduced to 2.0 gallons per minute at 80 pounds per second. When the thermal properties of air spaces are calculated as part of the wall assembly, these air spaces now must be enclosed in an unvented cavity designed to minimize airflow into and out of the cavity. There's changes to R values in Zone 5, which is our climate zone, although below grade R values are unchanged for commercial buildings, but mass walls have increased from R10 for continuous insulation to R14. Unheated slabs have increased R value requirements from R10 to R15 for up to 24 inches below grade. Fixed fenestration U values have been reduced, i.e. made more stringent, and operable fenestration U value remains the same. So now we're going to look at what happens with the 2021, and we're going to compare that to the 2018. Entrance door U values have been reduced, i.e. are more efficient. Solar heat gain coefficient for operable windows has been reduced, i.e. more stringent, where the projection factor is less than 0.2. And also in other circumstances. So the projection factor has to do with the presence of a shaded element at the fenestration that would reduce solar heat gain. And where this projection is lacking or insufficient, the resistance to solar heat gain of the window element must be more efficient. The additional efficiency packages have been replaced in the 2021, maybe the most important change. We now will have a point-based format based on occupancy type, climate zone, and measure. Credit is also added for commercial kitchen appliances and energy monitoring systems and fault detection and diagnostics. The additional efficiency packages have been in the code since Massachusetts's first stretch code was adopted at the international level in the 8th edition. This is a requirement to choose one area of additional conservation efforts beyond the prescriptive code. The code amendment hearings were very interesting this last fall. The AIA introduced a zero code renewable energy appendix that was approved as a voluntary element of the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. This appendix would require that new commercial, institutional, and mid to high-rise residential buildings install or procure enough renewable energy to achieve zero net carbon annually. The appendix encourages on-site renewable energy systems when feasible, but also supports off-site procurement of renewable energy through a variety of methods. The appendix does not allow renewable energy to be traded off against the energy efficiency required by the base code, and the provisions contained in this appendix are mandatory when specified as such in the jurisdiction's adopting ordinance. So it's an appendix. It's not going to be mandatory, but the International Code Council wants to make it available for jurisdictions that seek a higher level of energy efficiency. Simultaneously or subsequently, the AIA Massachusetts organization has submitted the same renewable energy appendix as the basis for the Massachusetts stretch code in the 10th edition. So the appendix applies to new buildings as defined by the International Energy Conservation Code, but not to single-family, multifamily structures of 3 stories or fewer above grade, and does not apply to modular or mobile homes. It also exempts buildings that use neither electricity nor fossil fuel. The IECC uses the concept of Zero Energy Performance Index, or ZEPI, which is defined as the ratio of proposed building energy use intensity without renewables to the baseline building energy use intensity expressed as a percentage. So getting back to the base code, we will again have the option between a prescriptive and a performance approach. Prescriptive approach uses a building type and climate zone table to determine the level of renewable energy required to achieve zero energy beyond the prescriptive requirements. For instance, an office building in climate zone 3A would need renewable energy production of 29,000 BTUs per square foot a year to make up the difference. And when the performance approach is used, the renewable energy requirement is based on energy modeling, and the needed renewable energy can be reduced through energy efficiency measures that exceed code. The Zero Code Renewable Energy Appendix allows the design of professional and building owners to choose the path that best fits the climate zone, project needs, design goals, and aspirations of the community. And the building official need only identify the compliance path selected, verify that the appropriate information has been submitted, and inspect during construction to confirm that the design features have been installed. So this slide shows the, again, the reference to the table, which provides a renewable energy calculation for the prescriptive path based on the climate zone and building type. The calculation is straightforward and easily done. So essentially, whatever the gap is between your energy efficiency and your expected energy demand will be filled or made up in terms of on-site or potentially off-site renewable energy. Again, if we use the performance-based approach, the team models the building to take advantage of more efficient lighting loads, smartly sized and oriented windows, external shading, and advanced HVAC systems. Compliance with the energy efficiency requirements of the IECC is achieved according to the energy performance modeling rules referenced in that code. With a more energy efficient building, a considerably smaller PV system can be installed to meet the requirements of the Zero Carbon Renewable Energy Appendix. And in most cases, it will be more cost effective to increase the energy efficiency and reduce the size of the renewable energy system. This is worth repeating. The ZECRI does not require renewable energy sources. It requires only zero carbon and allows the use of renewable energy to achieve that. So if an owner is unwilling or unable to install on-site renewable energy, they have the option to sign a contract to purchase what are known as renewable energy credits for a minimum period of 15 years. And evidence of a copy of this contract must be provided to the code official with the permit application and filed with the other construction documents. So, as mentioned, AIA Mass has submitted the same language to become Appendix 115AA, or the stretch code, and it will be reviewed for incorporation in the 10th edition of 780 CMR. Mandatory, in this case, for all designated green communities, because it is a condition of their status as a green community to enforce a stretch code. Other jurisdictions have the option to adopt it, and a green community that would like to avoid enforcement of the ZECRI could vote to withdraw from the Green Communities program. However, existing office buildings retrofitted to zero energy with renewables can produce a return on investment in as little as 5 to 6 years under today's incentive structures, and building energy demand can be reduced 44 to 54% across all building types with technology that is readily available today. So the opportunity to achieve zero carbon is present, and this stretch code requirement could make it a everyday occurrence. Again, This will not apply to single-family homes, multifamily structures 3 stories or fewer, and manufactured homes and houses, or to buildings that use neither electricity nor fossil fuel. This map from September of 2019 shows the communities that have adopted the stretch code, and there have been half a dozen additional communities since this map was made. I think this brings home the relevance or the magnitude of the possibility that the zero carbon renewable energy appendix may be mandatory for a majority of jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, with perhaps significant impact on our environmental footprint. So there is another proposal, which is worth mentioning. It's prepared and submitted by the Massachusetts Climate Action Network in conjunction with the Northeast Energy Partnership. And they have developed a proposal to update the Stretch Energy Code, which builds upon the Zero Code Appendix, but emphasizes load reduction on energy efficiency, electrification, and renewable energy in a slightly different manner than is done in the ZECRI. So the board is going to be presented with this option at their next meeting, and may choose to weigh its value against the ZECRI. We're going to call it the MAZEC, or the Massachusetts Zero Energy Code. It builds upon the AIA proposal by adding the following: a prescriptive compliance path, which is considered more straightforward than what is offered for a performance-based approach. A prescriptive backstop for projects using the performance path to avoid the variability that can come from relying solely on energy modeling for compliance. Requirements that preclude on-site combustion with exceptions. This is the most controversial element. Some jurisdictions in Massachusetts have chosen to take action to prevent installation of natural gas appliances in new construction, and this would codify that requirement. Also, a pass-fail criteria for renewable energy sources to avoid the weighting factor from the AIA Zero Code, while ensuring that the source of renewable energy provides additionality, and additional requirements to address the critical issues of resilience. So the Energy Advisory Committee of the BBRS will have to evaluate the value of this proposal and make recommendations to the board. Thank you. I hope this was helpful, and I'm happy to take any questions, Cheryl, if we have any.
Yes, Vernon, do you think that the current administration will support a zero net energy stretch code?
Yes, that's a question I can't answer definitively. However, there are indications that they would be inclined to do so, and the provisions of the Global Warming Solutions Act, which has been enacted by the Massachusetts State Legislature, require a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions through, among other things, building codes, which we are lagging behind in our compliance with. So I would say that the current administration has an interest in supporting this proposal. Yes.
Thank you. And I have one more. How much of a difference will it really make if only new commercial buildings are required to be NZE?
Another difficult question, and the answer I would give is that this would be a market transformation effort whereby Massachusetts, by being the first state to adopt zero code requirements, would demonstrate the feasibility and the economic impact, as well as the environmental impact of such a requirement. And it's very likely to facilitate adoption of similar requirements elsewhere, which would ultimately, one hopes, extend to existing buildings.
Great. Thank you, Vernon.
My
And
pleasure. Thank you.